This is the second of two videos demonstrating how to write JavaScript functions. When you're given a problem and you're given instructions, write a function that does this, that uses this, this is how you go about solving that kind of problem. Often, we write small functions that will be called inside other functions. So what you see here on screen is the function from the previous video, the first one. So having these little functions that can be used inside other functions makes our code modular. So it's easier to reuse and it's easier to debug. So for our second function, we've got 3 instructions. We're going to write a function that searches every item in a list, and it's searching for a given string. So it searches each item for that string. The function takes 2 arguments. The first argument is an array. The second argument is the string we want to search for. And what we're going to return is a new array of all the items that contain that string. So the first thing we need is an array. And we're going to go into Repl.it here. And so here's an array of desserts using fruits. Now, don't be thrown off because the first instruction said we need a list. Is there anything else in JavaScript that would work as a list? No, we use an array, right? So that's why we've got an array. And once again, we're going to use a scaffold of a function. So we have an array, that's finished, and we give a little outline of what is a function built like. So here's that. The next thing we want to do is name the function sensibly, descriptively. And so our first function was called findString. We're going to name this one findString in array. Now instruction 2 says this function takes 2 arguments. We need an array and a string to search for. So that means I have to give 2 parameters. And I'm going to be more explicit this time than in the first example. I'm not going to use A and B because I might find it easier to keep in mind which variable is my array if I name them like this. So my instructions tell me to write a function that searches every item in a list for a given string. Okay? So anytime we're going to do something with an array, it's safe to bet that we can use a loop to do it. A loop lets us look at each item in the array one by one. So let's set up a loop structure inside the function. Now, often beginners are thrown off by this. They think, wait a minute, why does the for loop condition for stopping, why does it say list.length? My array is not named list, it's named recipes. So the 2 parameters for our function, list and myString, they are variable names. They're going to be used only inside the function. When you call the function, you can put in any array as the first argument. You will assign the array recipes, in this case, to the parameter list. And then every use of list inside the function is a reference to that array named recipes. So this is one of the things you become more used to as you practice. Getting comfortable with the use of parameters is really important, and doing function exercises will help you with that. Now, we need to fill in the loop instructions. What do we need to do with each array item? We need to check whether it contains the string. So we could write this, but wait, we already have a function that does that. It was the first function, the one in the previous exercise. So instead of writing the same code over again, we can simply call that function right here in our loop. Remember that the value of I changes each time the loop runs because of I++. So each time it becomes greater by 1. So it starts with 0, then it's 1, then it's 2. So when we execute the function named findString, it's going to act on each item in the recipes array. First on the first item, which has the index of 0. Then on the second item, which has the index of 1. Instruction 3 tells us we have to return a new list of all the items that contain our selected string. This is another thing that might make you feel stuck as a beginner. A new array. Where do we get a new array? The answer is we make one. So we just make an empty array, we give it a new name, and that's where we're going to put any item from the first array that matches our criteria. Our next task is to figure out how do we get only the items from recipes, that array, that match the string, and then put them into the new array named selected recipes. Well, if we want to put items into an array, we need to push, right? Push will put a new item into an array. But where in the code, in this function, in this code, where do we push? This is the problem solving that you need to practice. So where do we push? We have to make sure the item from recipes has the searched string inside it. So that means that findString, paren, list I, comma, myString, paren, would return true. That function from before, it would return true. If it returns false, we don't want that item. Oh, look, I just said if. So what do we do when we're going to branch? When we're going to say, if this is true, do this. If not, don't do that, or do something else. Sometimes we can just kind of fill it in roughly. We don't necessarily have to put in all our JavaScript punctuation and everything, and then fill it out further once you've got the idea of how you're going to do it. And at this point, you might feel a desire to add an else statement. The question is, do you need one? In fact, you don't need an else statement here. You have written the code that adds the desired item to the new array, selected recipes, and this loop doesn't need to do anything else. I mean, when the item doesn't match, the loop just runs again. So this is another thing that beginners can get hung up on. You don't have to add every possible thing to a loop or to a condition or to a function. Now let's look at our instructions. Have we completed them yet? No, because we're also told we have to return something. What do we return? We have to return a new array of all the items that contain the string we were looking for. Well, we already have that new array. We have it. We have ensured that every suitable item will be in that list. That part's already done. But when will they all be in the list? When will everything that needs to be in that new list, selected recipes, when will all the things be in there? After the loop has finished. So make sure that you write this return statement outside the loop, but still inside the function. Also, be careful about these curly braces. You have one set of curly braces that surrounds the entire function. You have another pair of curly braces to surround the loop, and you have a third set of curly braces that surrounds the if statement. Keeping these pairs of curly braces intact and correct is one of the huge annoyances of writing JavaScript code. You just need to practice and you will get used to it. So now our second function should be complete. To run it, we have to call the function and give it the arguments we want it to use when it runs. So you know we have an array named recipes, and then we have to put whatever string we want to search for, and I'm going to use cake. Now, the string cake could be any string at all, or it could be a variable that contains a string. And of course, recipes could be the name of any array. It doesn't have to be that one. So we often want to use what a function returns, whatever value it returns. We want to take that value and use it somewhere else in our code. So we need to know how to catch that returned value in a new variable. And this is how. So we declare a new variable. I'm going to call it result. And we make that equal to the function call with its 2 arguments. So this will put whatever the function returns into the variable named result. After we've got that value, we can use it by invoking that variable. I hope this demonstration helps you start solving simple JavaScript function problems on your own, because that's really the best way to learn how to use functions. You can search for collections of JavaScript function problems. There are lots of them online.